Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy Keith the Guy, and we got some fish to fry. And today we have another color grading tutorial. Now, I shot this a couple days ago on my Canon R5, and I was just like, I like the way it turned out, and I just want to go ahead and color grade this. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust some settings. I already went ahead and uploaded my media for now, and it's pretty easy. The second you open up DaVinci Resolve, get through the splash page, there's going to be a big icon that says import media. And then you go into whatever drive where your media is at and you just import it. And it's as simple as that. So I already know that I shot this in a 2048 by 1080 DCI. So I'm going to change that. Your default usually will be like 1920 by 1080. And the next thing we're going to do is go to color management. And then we're going to go to DaVinci YRGB color managed. And we're going to turn off the automatic. And we're going to go ahead and press custom. Now we could do it this way. There's two other ways to go about doing it. And you know what? I'm going to do it the other way. So I'm just going to go back to DaVinci YRGB and just do it the node way. So there's the settings way and then there's the node way. If you want to do it the settings way, I guess I'll just go ahead and show you right now how to go ahead and go about doing that. So you're going to go to color manage. You're going to turn off automatic color manage and you're going to go ahead and click custom. Now your input color space is going to be whatever your camera settings were. For me, I used my Canon R5 on Canon R3. So we're going to go ahead and click that part. And then our timeline color space 9 out of 10 times, especially if you're going to put your media online, it's going to be Rec 709, Gamma 2.2 or Gamma 2.4, right? So we're going to click on Gamma 2.4. And then we're going to do the timeline working color space to custom. And then we're going to bring this to the highest nits possible, which I believe is 10,000. So we're going to go ahead and put as much zeros as we possibly can. And it'll just limit itself to whatever. And then your output color space is also going to be Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. And we're going to also put our input DRT to none and our output to luminance mapping. And then we're going to go ahead and press save. That is the settings way to do it, but we're not going to do it that way. We're just going to keep it simple and we're going to go ahead and go to the node way. So we're going to press save and we're going to go ahead and add a couple nodes. I'm going to go ahead and add 4. So we're going to bring that one down, that one up. These two, we're going to put them in the middle. And we're definitely going to add some more nodes, but these are my starter ones per se. So we're going to long press that and we're going to name these nodes because we are organized and we're not messy. So we're going to name this IDT and that is going to be our color transform, our initial color transform. And then we're going to go ahead and do the last one and name that ODT. So we're going to long press. Node label. And we're going to name this ODT, all caps. And what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and go to our effects panel. So in order to get to our effects, you're going to see this big FX over here. And then we're going to go ahead and put a CST on both of them. So we're going to tap there and then we're going to do color. Be right here, color space transform. We're going to drag it onto there and then we're going to move this here so we can get to it. We're going to also drag a color space transform there and we're going to move that back down. Now you remember all the jibber jabber that I did in the settings. We're going to actually do the exact same thing here. So we're going to go back into effects so we can activate the effects, right? And our input color space is going to be Canon Cinema Gamut because that's how I shot it. So our output color space is going to be DaVinci Wide Gamut, and then it's going to be DaVinci Intermediate, right? And it went back gray. So what we have to do to reactivate that is go into our ODT. And what the ODT is going to do is turn this into a Rec 709 Gamma 2.4 appropriate look. So in order to do that, we're actually going to do DaVinci Wide Gamut, DaVinci Intermediate, And then we're going to change this from that to Rec 709 and then Gamma 2.4. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to attack the exposure. So we're going to go ahead and actually go to our HDR reel, and we're going to go ahead and attack the global, and we're going to just touch it up a smidge. I'm going to go ahead and just put 0.05 and press enter. Just bring up the exposure by a little, not a lot. And what I also like to do is actually go to my primary color wheels. And this is where I like to adjust the gamma a little bit and the gain to bring down that gain a little bit. Now you want to go ahead and utilize the waveform so you can kind of see what you're doing. Now the RGB is activated on here, so I'm going to turn off the colorize. And just as I said, it's actually fairly exposed, so there's not much that we really had to do here for the exposure. And we're just going to carry on to contrast, because that's where we're going to get a little bit more out of our darks and our brights and contrast. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually go to our contrast curves, and we're going to turn on editable splines. Now what editable splines are going to do is the second you type on a circle, you got this knob or this handle, whatever you want to call it, and you can kind of adjust it in a way where you're not being as destructive if you were to just create your own S-curve. So we're going to go ahead and create an S-curve here. You see, I'm going to go ahead and reset that. We're going to do the bottom. We're going to do the darks first, and we're going to get it to a point which we like. So we're going to go ahead and also create a slight S-curve, nothing too serious. And I kind of like that contrast. And we're just going to carry on to our saturation. Now, here's the secret that's not so much of a secret anymore. We're going to create a new node. You know what? Let's name these, because I was not naming these the whole time. So this is exposure. This is going to be our contrast. And this is going to be saturation, quote unquote, HSV saturation. Now, once again, like I said, I'm going to show you guys a little secret that's not so much of a secret. It's what I'm seeing a lot of colorists are starting to do, only because this is the most cinematic way to get saturation out of DaVinci Resolve. So we're going to hard press this again. We're going to go to color space, and we're going to go to HSV. We're going to go down until we find HSV, which is right there. And then once we got that in, we're going to hard press again, and we're going to go to channels, and we're going to turn off channel 1, and we're going to turn off channel 2, right? We only want to attack the saturation. So once we turn off channel 1 and we turn off channel 3, we're only messing with the S and the HSV. You're going to go ahead and either start playing with the gamma or the gain, and it's not even going to attack any of the lightness or darkness. It's actually just going to attack the saturation and the gamma and the saturation and the gain. Now, we don't want to oversaturate this. That is a quick way to differentiate a novice from a professional, is when you overdo the saturation. And we don't want to overdo the saturation. The R5 did a pretty great job already keeping it saturated once we put it into our color space transform. So I'm just going to add a dab of saturation in my HSV. And that's all we're really going to do when it comes down to saturation. Of course, every image is different. You might need to snag on a little bit more saturation or snag off. Really depends on your image. But for this one, I like the way the saturation is here. So we're going to go ahead and add another node, and we're going to kind of balance it out. Now we're going to look at our parades and see what is super dominant here in this shot. Now we have our reds, our greens, and our blues. And it's looking like we got a lot of red and a lot of green going on in this shot. The green may be mainly because he's actually wearing a green shirt. So what we're going to do is actually go to our primary color bars. So we're just going to start tapping and adjusting until we get a somewhat balanced. So not liking it here. and we're going to keep adjusting until it looks nice to our liking. This looks a lot more balanced to me. I'm actually going to add a little bit more red because it seems like a lot of red has been removed. All right, I like the way that's balanced. And we're going to give ourselves a little bit more real estate by dragging this here so we can have more space. So I'm going to go ahead and add another serial node, and I'm going to go ahead and name this HSL, which I'm not going to be doing a lot in the HSL here, simply because I kind of like the colors. But if you want to adjust your hue, saturation, and luminance, this is where you could do it. So you're going to go ahead and go into the custom curves tab. Now you're actually going to do hue versus hue, hue versus sat, or hue versus luminance, and this is where you can dabble with it. So I'm going to go to hue versus sat, and I know for a fact I want to bring up those greens so it could pop out in the shirt. So I'm going to bring it up. And you actually want to activate your vector scope just to see if you're going too far or not. So I'm going to bring up those greens. Once again, like I said, once you oversaturate something, it kind of differentiates a novice from a professional. So you don't want to overdo any saturation in any of your images. And I'm also going to bring up the yellows a little bit too. And I'm actually going to bring up the saturation in my blues. And I'm actually going to attack my luminance in my colors as well to add some density to it. So I'm actually going to darken the greens to a color that I like. And I'm actually going to darken my yellows as well because they're not too far off from each other. Now, when you touch up on the yellows, understand that you're actually getting into the skin. So just be a little bit careful when it comes down to your yellows. Now we're running out of space here, so I'm just going to bring that HSL down, and I'm going to create another tab. And this is just to kind of clean up the skin if the skin needs to be cleaned up. What we're going to do is we're actually going to go into our color slice. So now that we're in the color slice area, we're going to adjust our skin. We're going to go ahead and name this skin. Now make sure your vector scope is activated. Go into your settings and make sure you show skin tone indicator. And if you can't really see, click on the 2x zoom as well, and it'll get a little bigger. So we're going to actually tap on that half moon circle where it says skin, and you're going to see how much of the skin is being impacted. Now, as you could see, it's not grabbing his skin a lot. So we're going to actually adjust the center until we get a little bit more of his skin. So we're going to tap on that half moon again. We're getting some more skin, and we're going to just keep adjusting until we get a lot more of his skin. I don't know if you see much of a change, right? But it is actually grabbing some more of his skin. Now, -1 is the furthest you can go, but we got enough here. And then you're going to see on that little line on the vector scope, it's going to show you where the skin lies on the vector scope. And you want to make sure it lies on that line, right? It doesn't matter if you're white, black, or, well, it does matter if you're blue. Hopefully you're not blue. Majority of people aren't blue. It doesn't matter what your skin color is or your skin tone is. So you want to make sure your line remains on that. So we're going to actually adjust the hue a little bit until we get our skin onto that line. So we're going to keep adjusting. We're getting closer. You can barely see it, but it's there. Boom. Now we're on our skin perfectly. And the very last thing we're going to do is we're actually going to create another serial, and we're going to actually draw in some blues in the black dark areas to kind of give it a little cinematic look. So we're going to actually call this our orange-teal look, so OT. Now this is where a lot of people kind of get confused or frustrated, because when you go into, let's just say, your primaries, and then you go into your log wheels, and you want to drag some of that blue into your blacks, you see it's also coming into his skin and everything else. Now there's a very easy way to adjust that, which is you just go to the range and then you bring it down or up to see how much you want impacted into your skin right? I don't want it in my skin at all. So I'm gonna bring the range down so it doesn't really impact his skin. And I'm just gonna draw in as much blue as I want. Once again, a good edit is an edit that does not go too noticed, in my opinion. So we're gonna reset the shadows and we're going to put back in some of that blue. And we're gonna create another node, right, to add in some oranges. So our highlights and our shadows. So now we can actually go into the mid-tone in the highlights range and add a little bit of orange into there. And then we can adjust our high range to make sure it doesn't go into our blacks. And that's how you can add a little bit of pop. And that's basically it for this tutorial. Now, it was pretty simple, right? We just did a little bit of adjusting and it's not too far off when it comes down to editing on the desktop. Now for the desktop version, so I'm gonna go ahead and widescreen this so you guys can take a look at the actual shot. Tell me what you guys think about this. Great. Tell me if this video is beneficial to you. If it was, go ahead, like, share, and subscribe. Well, this is it. My real name's Kit. It be that Sid. Deuces.